Hello, KFC SuperCoaches. The teams are in for round 6. Massive breaking news, and that is that Jermaine Hopgood, our man, is in 75% of teams, has been benched. That is huge, and we've got a huge panel as well with Rob Sutherland and Kane Anderson from the SuperCoach Hub. I'll start with you, Rob. What's happening with Hopgood? Sell?
For me, yes. Yeah. Sorry.
There's an echo.
There's an echo at the moment. Who's on audio with the God speaker? Yeah, I think Hopgood has to go.
I think
we'll stop laughing at ourselves. Yeah. I think Hopgood has to go. He's made like 95% of his cash to me. There might be a little bit more money here. There might be a little bit more money there. But the whole point of SuperCoach, you can't have be sentimental. It's just like your children. When they're done, they're done. Move them on and get the next one.
Well, we've got Kane Anderson on from the SuperCoach Hub. Debut on the show. What are you thinking?
I don't think he's necessarily a straightaway sell. I think he's a good option to sell if you've got guys like your Hoskings and that you want to try and buy this week. He's potentially sell, but his break-even's only 45. He's not going to lose a whole lot of cash if you've got other priorities and you can do other things for the moment. So it's a bit here or there depending on what you need to do with your team for me.
Well, speaking of priorities, I've got big priorities, and that is freeing up a heap of cash for Nico Hynes next week. So Hopgood has to go for me. The other things I want to point out here is that Bryce Cartwright is a massive winner. So he's retained a spot on the edge, even with Sean Lane back into the team. And then Ryan Madison, he's playing lock, presumably playing pretty big minutes as well. So he could be a real purchase, particularly when we get to that bye period when the Eels have the best run of any team.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm totally talking off the top of my head here and possibly out of my bottom, but I think Hopgood leads the Eels for try, assist, try, contributions and all forms of scoring. So it's a really interesting decision by Brad Arthur to decide not to score points, and I hope that Parramatta fans enjoy it.
Let's move on to the winners and the losers from the teams. I've got Schuster as a winner. He's back from a calf injury. So, look, a lot of people already own him. Quad injury. Calf injury was the other one.
Correct.
And that's the main issue with Schuster.
Professionals. Just, yeah.
His body, and he's been cramping and there's all sorts of things going on. His body is not particularly reliable. Are you bringing him in this week?
I don't have him, and it's on my potential buys list. I've not got Hoskings either, so kind of tossing the two up with Hopgood there as my potential sell, because my back row is pretty stacked like most people's are at the moment. So Schuster's a thought, but he's got a pretty rough couple of weeks with Panthers this week and Storm next week. So he wouldn't be a play. So do I go somewhere else and then just see how Schuster goes over a couple of weeks? So yeah, I've got a few things to think about in that regard.
Fair enough. I bought Schuster in last week, actually, so he's obviously not a play, as you say, these next two rounds, but then it does really open up for him. Thoughts on Schuster?
Yeah, well, I've got Pezzett, so it'll be Pezzett out, Schuster in via Katoa, which will then be Schuster going up to the second row to get Hynes. That's my plan.
Let's chat about Zach Hosking. He is the most purchased player. There was always a watch on this for me, given that Luke Garner was out with a rib injury and Liam Martin was out with a hamstring injury. Both of those guys missed out again this week. So, look, here he is scoring one of 2 tries so far in his Panthers career. He's looking good, but the most impressive thing, other than the tries, is the base stats. You're looking at mid-50s in base stats.
His base stats have been really good. The issue isn't necessarily his base stats, it's whether he's going to maintain the minutes. And when those two other guys come back, even if one of them is on the bench, like a Garner is on the bench and Hoskins is still starting, there's going to be some sort of rotation there. And is he going to be scoring enough of those base stats in that time to make it worthwhile keeping longer term?
I'm not thinking particularly long term with him, to be honest. It's maybe 3-4 weeks and then upgrade to someone like Madison before the buys. What are your thoughts?
Yep.
I agree. I think if you get him, you have to be realistic that it's 3 or 4 weeks because, well, it's 3 or 4 weeks and then a bit, right? So it's 3 or 4 weeks. Then Fisher Harris comes back, which means Sorensen, who will be probably spending some time in the middle when Fisher Harris is out. Then Sorensen becomes available to be in the edge rotation. Suddenly you've got a lot of sort of people in there. But then comes Origin. Yo goes out. Martin possibly goes out. That's 2 Panthers going out that might create opportunity. So, you can. It's a gamble, right? And Martin's not a lay down misere. Yo is the lay down misere to go into the team.
Definitely. But if you think that he can be getting enough minutes to maintain his price until that Origin period, then that's another option to just keep him there.
Agreed.
As an extra bench player,
Yeah.
you don't have to play him every week if you've got better matchups and that sort of thing. But yeah, there's a few options still available for him.
He does have a very friendly game to SuperCoach.
Yes.
That's one thing you got to look at.
And a
the
very
other thing I'd
friendly
say,
halfback.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing I would say, just because I like to be difficult, is the 50 odd in base. It's tricky, right? So it's like a 63 and a 38 or something. It's not like he got 50 both times. He had one very high base game and one it's not so good.
Yeah, that was a very different game, that one, that's for sure. Send through your questions, guys, on Facebook or on YouTube, or on both. And I'm going to take the latest one on Facebook, and that is, no idea who to trade this week. I'm in a similar boat. Who's a good CTW upgrade if I sell the hammer? Well, Greg Marzu is the number one. He's the most popular, and I think he's a pretty decent purchase.
I agree. I'll jump in this one. I'm probably getting Marzu this week. The thing with Marzu for me is that he's taking about 25 runs. He's busting between 5 and 8 or 10 tackles. So you're looking at a base of 45, 50, which is awesome, right? I know that he can be a turnstile, or it's not that he misses tackles. It's that he misses the opportunity to miss the tackles. He completely misreads the defence. His role in it. But the way I look at the Knights is they can't defend out of a hole, right? They have to attack, and Greg Marzu brings attack. So, I can see why O'Brien will stick with him. I'm going to take the punt.
It comes down to what style he wants to play as well, because if he wants to actually get some defensive resilience, then he's probably going to bring Hynes back into the side at some point. If they're happy playing the blast teams with points sort of game, then Marzu's definitely going to be staying there. So who knows what?
I've got 2 things to point out with Marzu. One is that Barry Toohey, our man who used to work here at the Telegraph, is now up at the Newcastle Herald, he's never wrong, and he's said that Marzu has won that spot over Hynes Hunt. Okay. So that's pretty good for me. The second thing is that even if he flops and gets dropped next week, he still is going to make 150k this week. So you're making a whole bunch of cash. There's not that much downside on a guy who could be a potential keeper. So for me, he's in. And James Tedesco, unfortunately, is the guy who has to go. We'll take another question. Hopgood or Wilton for Hosking? Thoughts? I mean, Wilton's going okay. He's got the bye this week. I'd be tempted to sell him first and then do Hopgood later.
It depends how your 17's looking. If you've got cover and you can cover, then I'd leave Wilton where he is, because he's a play each week that you've got him. Whereas if you think that Hopgood's going to be losing minutes and losing too many points, next week we've got Junior Barlow back, who's going to also take some more middle minutes out of the spread. So I would probably sell Hopgood first.
Fair enough.
I probably agree. Wilton's been funny, hasn't he? In that he's looked really good to the eye, but in SuperCoach scoring, he's getting to 60s, and that's kind of where he's priced now. So, you're not going to make a lot more money out of him. You're not going to lose much money, and you can potentially play him. Hopgood, I will say this, even with limited minutes, he can be very efficient as a scorer. He's got so much offload in him that maybe it'd be interesting to see off the bench. He might step up and just become like Maddo was at some point earlier in his career, where he just threw 16 offloads in the space of 28 minutes.
Yeah,
you never
fair.
quite,
Plenty of chat coming through on Facebook Live. Will is saying, don't know what's tougher to see, Sangster in that tracksuit or him being ranked 50k overall.
That's unkind.
It hurts because it's true.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, it's obviously the tracksuit. Not even a debate.
And a lot of people are saying you're looking very slick today as well, Kane, which is good.
I was expecting some comments, at least in the negatives at some point, but we'll see.
No, only strong so far.
Tommy's always kind when he reads out the comments, don't you?
Oh, no, not to you. That's for sure. Peter's asking thoughts on Dearden starting to run the ball a bit more and has nearly bottomed out in price.
Is he just 5'8"?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wasteland in 5'8", so it's kind of hard to really pick. Do you go and get a Munster who's got a bye in a few weeks going into Origin? Do you have Dylan Brown who's got a high break-even but a decent matchup and will play through that middle period? Do you wait a little bit on him until his price comes down? Dewey's not doing so great.
Cody's starting to hit his straps.
That was one I was about to...
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Not to...
Yeah.
You know, but as another option, as a left fielder that has a lot of pedigree as a good player for SuperCoach, they've got a few good matchups coming up as well. So he's definitely an option. Didden doesn't excite me too much in
Didden
Classic.
doesn't work for me.
Got a good question for you, Rob, on YouTube. Send them through, guys. Blake Lawrie, guys. Is he going to keep going the nugget? Is the question. The KFC nugget.
Right. I was going a different way. When we look at the stats, it's something like Laurie's played 104 games, I think, in the NRL. Up until last year, he played 101 and scored 1 try. So he's scored 2 tries in 3 games or something like that.
Yeah.
He's the 3rd best average of any front row forward in the game.
Oh, really?
And I dead set guarantee I will come onto this show naked if Blake Lawrie finishes the season
I'm waiting for how many
in the
go
top
there.
5 front row. So I think I'm pretty safe with that.
Oh, we've got to write that down.
I'll go
Write that down.
bottomless
Top 5.
if he's a 60-point average. How's that? Yeah. Tom gets
I
a
don't
win
know if
both
I'm...
ways.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm keen on
As a
that.
Dragons fan,
Well,
every
I'm
time
not talking
Laurie
about the
scores, you're like,
Dragons.
ah!
Blake Lawrie he's the closest thing to George Rose that we've seen recently, and I love him as a Dragons fan. He's great. His work rate's sensational, and he's a fine specimen.
Well, I mean, now that Aaron Woods is out of the way.
Yes. All right, I've just jotted that down, that bet. I cannot forget about that because.
Have you got a list?
No, I don't. I really should.
the top of the list at the moment.
For sure.
Jack's asking, is Jason Saba by? It's not. It's a bit ridiculous. Like, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but he did have that amazing run when Turbo was in the team 2 years ago.
It's a not now.
Yeah.
I think, again, the matchups for the Manly are not great over the next couple of weeks. You get a free look at him, basically. And then if he doesn't do well for a couple of games, plummets in cash for a little bit, he could be an interesting option through Origin period or something like that.
He is the fastest man in the NRL, according to Dean Ritchie.
Correct. Adokar is
and
the
then
fastest man in the planet.
Yeah.
Alafiana Khan Pereira is the fastest man in Queensland. Yeah. So it does get awkward. Yeah.
And then Dom Young's got to be in there somewhere. But
He's just
it's
tall.
just,
He's tall. So Saab, I believe, he's also bulked up. Like he's been on the Cronulla diet. He's looking sick.
Yeah, not going there. Not touching that one.
You cannot say that. Tahu Harris is back, guys. That's big news for 13%. But they do play late in the round again. They've got that first game on Sunday again, so we're going to have to wait for late mail. Jacob Preston is an interesting one. He's basically playing like a keeper or borderline keeper at the moment, but he's got this finger injury and he is rated a 50-50 chance. Surely with all the guys out at that club, they just say, come on, youngster, strap it up. You're playing this week. They can't live without him this round with 11 regular forwards out.
You would think so. You would think that you can strap 2 fingers together fairly well.
Yep.
But it's going to hinder his grip and that sort of thing in defence maybe a little bit, but might be a bit sore, obviously, but I'm sure that he'll be able to get through a game there. And whether they manage minutes or something maybe for that, don't really know. But he's playing really well and he's definitely not a sell, even if he does drop out late or something like that.
He's got about 60,000 SuperCoaches wishing him along, so surely he'd be wanting to take the field. Isaac for Asamoah, any love for him? He's the most popular cheapie this week. He's not the best cheapie we've ever seen. What are your thoughts on him?
I don't want to spend trades in front row.
Yeah.
I've already got Murdoch Masila, who's actually going to make money.
Yeah.
With a 50 last week. So I'm stoked with that. He's my 3rd front rower, though. So if I get injuries in the front row, I'm up the creek a little bit. And Pele is my 4th, who is injured now, and I don't really want to do a sideways front row trade to another plodder sort of front row forward. He could potentially earn a fair bit of cash there, but not 200k I wouldn't expect playing off the bench with minimal minutes.
No, so you're looking at, 30-odd minutes at about a point per minute. So it's
not exciting.
You're looking at a very sort of similar output to Davey Moale or someone like that.
And
his minutes are inflated. They were running at 3 forwards, 1 back bench. Now they've got 4 forwards. If I was going to go a cheapie, the one I like is Lindsay Smith from Penrith. He's got a much better SuperCoach game. Fasua Ma'ali is a grinder. He makes tackles and he makes hit-ups, and that's what he does. Whereas Smith's got offloads, he's got tackle bust, he's got a little bit of pepper on his step. That said, he hasn't got the greatest job security. But if I was going to go cheapie, I'd probably go that one.
Yeah, I thought about it earlier in the week, but I definitely want to give him another look because we don't know how long James Fisher-Harris is out for.
Yep.
Then you've got Liam Martin floating around there too, and Luke Garner, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. I'm going to give him a week. But there are good signs there. That offload, was it for the Cleary try, was very good.
I believe Spencer Leniu is going to come over to the Roosters if we get any more injuries as well, so that's okay. They're just going
they're going to do it early?
Yeah.
It would. I'm not laughing because it's probably going to happen, knowing the Roosters. Khan Pereira, so there was some chat that he would get dropped. Obviously, he's been amazing in attack, 5 tries in 4 games, but he's made 10 errors along the way. So the coach refused to guarantee his spot last week, but he has been named. I believe, is Ken Mamalo lurking on the bench there? So there we go. Great news.
Jojo Fafita's there, though.
So we can't absolutely lock in that 100k or so price rise.
Not yet, but we do pray.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
would really love that cash, so I can use that as a bump up somewhere else. That would be fantastic. But yeah, Jojo there is a bit of a concern because he's played pretty well.
He's legit.
Yeah.
Legit starting winger.
Good matchup for Khan Pereira this weekend if he does play up against the Dragons. Matt Croker, popular cheapie from last round. He got absolutely hammered by Gerbo. His ribs must still be hurting, but he's been named and he's expected to play. Moving on to the losers, Nico Hynes. He's a loser because he hasn't been named this week, given that they've got the bye. But you just have to be doing whatever you can to get him into your team. He looks amazing.
Obviously, the guys doing the stats have him in their team.
Oh, here
mate,
we go.
It's rigged. It's absolutely rigged. I tell you, there's certain players they just get looked after, and I believe it's because podcasters, like famous podcasters, have them in their team, right? And so the scorers, they look after them. I've seen this. I've seen it around. I've seen it on social media. I know it's true.
Isn't this supposed to just be for Sanger, though?
Famous podcast.
Sanger's got the year of the scorers, doesn't he?
Yeah, he just calls them straight up. Yeah. He texts me, he goes, boys, I need about 43 out of this. Yeah, thank you.
Moving on to James Tedesco, out for a week with concussion, at least a week, and with his history, could be a little bit longer. That is quite a sickening hit. And as I say, with his history, it could be more than a week, so I think he is a definite sell.
Yeah, I think he's a sell. I thankfully sold him a couple of weeks ago. Managed to avoid the 22 this week, which was fantastic. But yeah, look, it could be extra weeks. We just have no idea. Concussion's too up in the air a lot of the time. So well, the other factor is he's had quite a few. So even if he does come back, does he become more susceptible?
Yeah.
He's bleeding cash. I think he's an easy trade out for this week.
And there's plenty of options. There's Lockie Miller. There's Reece Walsh. There's getting money to get to Hynes. There's lots of reasons to sell Teddy.
Brandon Wakeham he was the saviour of the Tigers a couple of weeks ago. Now he's the scapegoat. He's been dropped out of that team, so if you got on as a cheapie, it's not great news for him. Jonah Pezzett, we have mentioned, but we're kind of hoping that he'd earned a bench spot, even with Jerome Hughes back in that team. It hasn't happened, so he's just going to sit on making 95k from last week.
Yeah. Which
is a bit of a blow. Franklin Pele out for 6 weeks with a broken arm. And Jack Bostock, I was hoping that he would become a cheapie, but he didn't get it. I barely got any points last week. And unfortunately, Edric Lee is back into that team. Moving on to the
not unfortunate for Edric.
Not unfortunate for Edric.
It's nice to see the Lee cousins right again.
I'm excited to see Edric put on the Dolphin jersey.
Absolutely. Moving on to the buyers, Greg Marshew, really popular. We've spoken about him a fair bit, but he just strolled over this try.
His hardest thing to score that was turning the corner.
Yeah,
and that's Marzu, right? He's not particularly agile at going sideways, but God, he goes in a straight line really well.
Nathan Cleary is a really popular purchase. If for some reason you don't own him, it is a good week to get on because his price has bottomed out. And well, here's that offload that I was mentioning before from Lindsay Smith to
nice.
Cleary to score that try.
I think if you don't have Cleary, this is the target week. Because most people that don't have Cleary probably have Hynes already. So this is probably the week to be using your Hopgoods to generate some cash, going down to a Schuster or something like that to be able to bump up your other halfback to get Cleary, because I think he's going to have a big week this week.
Indeed. Reece Walsh, what are you doing with him, Rob? Because he is still really popular. People have Tedesco to sell, but I just can't get on when he's, 150k more than what he was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the draw's still pretty good. The form's fantastic, but at his price is almost the same as Lockie Miller's, and I'll take Lockie Miller every day over Reece Walsh. I think there's only 10k difference, if so. Miller brings you dual position. Walsh doesn't, and I just think Miller has a better overall SuperCoach game.
Yep, Miller's got a much higher base, and he bust tackles for fun.
Yep.
So he's going to be getting 50 to 60 without doing anything.
Yep.
Reece Walsh was on 0 at halftime 2 weeks ago. Miller will never have that.
Correct.
Having said that, I don't think the Knights draw is super good going forward over the next few weeks, whereas Walsh still has a couple of good games ahead. It depends on what your overall plan is and who you actually want as your fullbacks. Because if you go to Walsh now, you're probably going to be selling. If he gets an Origin gig, you're not going to hold him through that period. You're going to want to find someone else. And whether you actually think he's going to be one of your top twos.
Who's your dream fullback?
Turbo?
Dream fullback. Turbo end?
I don't know.
I do. Turbo and Paps for me.
Yeah, there's so much time between now and then that's not even on my radar yet, because he's going to come back. He's probably going to play off the bench for the first few games.
Perfect.
And lose.
Bring his price down.
Oh, well, if he gets down to 500k then and gets a starting gig.
He's starting at 900.
But if he's playing 20 to 30 minutes a game...
Yeah, but he'll do that Nico Hynes thing where he plays 20 to 30 minutes and scores 85 points.
That's probably true.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a sidebar. Sorry, Thomas. Back to you.
Next on the buy list, Payne Haas. He's about 10 points more per game than the next best prop. I think you do have to get him in, but is it urgent this week? Probably not, but you have to get him in sooner rather than later.
Well, I'm the one with the Walsh-Stefano front row pairing at the moment, so I do need to deal with that at some point, and with Stefano having a bye next week, that's definitely becoming a priority. So this week might become a free up some cash to bump Stefano up next week situation.
Look, I got Payne last week. I was tossing up between him and Tapane, and yeah, I was lucky. I picked Payne. Happy with it. I think eventually you're going to want to get to Payne and Tino or Payne and Tapane, but at the moment, front row is a bit of a wasteland outside of Payne. He's 95 points more than the next best. I would hurry to get him if I could.
I probably would have targeted, sorry,
You're right.
Tom, I probably would have targeted Tapane first if he didn't have a bye in round 9.
There's that. I just, honestly, I had to look at their scores and I was like, Payne Haas's worst game was as good as almost Tapane's best. I tried to take the emotion out of it, and I'm an emotional man. It's tough.
Well, Tapane built up last year as well.
He did.
At this point last year, he wasn't on anyone's radar whatsoever, and he was purchased by a whole heap of people in round 12 as just he's going to be my fill-in for a couple of weeks, and then everyone held him for the rest of the year because he was killing it.
Payne's other advantage is he's better coached.
I'm not touching that.
I'm just waiting for Kiki to come flying through the window.
Jack Johns is an interesting one because he's pretty popular this week, but he's got some big job security issues. I don't think the cheapies are particularly good this week. Is he the best? Flies and Wild is probably the best of them. Jack Johns, I think, is an avoid if you can.
If you can. If it's a necessity, then yeah, he's probably going to earn a bit of cash for you, but job security, how many minutes is he going to keep playing? How far away is Elliott?
2 weeks.
How far
Elliott's
away
a
is
couple of
Mann?
weeks.
Trap, yeah.
Mann's in on the bench
He's
this
back
week,
this week.
I believe. Plus, you've got Safidi due back in round 8. I don't think he's going to be in the team in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's the issue.
And he's only going to go up by about 50k, according to SuperCoach Plus, which is too big a risk to take.
Yeah,
Not worth the trade.
Moving on to the holds, Paul Alamotti. I've got on the holds. I can get around selling Alamotti. He's made his cash, but I still feel you've only just scratched the surface with him. He's got an amazing base, averaging 40 odd without scoring a try. He will go on a try scoring run at some stage.
You know who did this last year? Exactly this. Tolu Kula.
Cool.
And it was like, we're all like, he's got all this ability in the world and he just doesn't have any luck, and everyone sold him at 400k. and then he scored a try. And then he scored another try and another 2 tries, and he went to like 570. And I really feel Alamotti has the potential to do exactly the same thing.
He's one of those guys that's, again, not a priority sell, but if he's your only option to get someone like a Marju or a Miller or whoever your target is, then I can get around selling him this week. It's, again, not priority, but if someone has to go, then he's not a bad option.
Yeah, I think I've got Jermaine Hopgood as a sell above him, the Hammer, Stefano Udukamanu, all above him, and then Alamotti comes in at about 4th or 5th on the sell list. Yeah. Moving on to the sells, Jermaine Hopgood, we've spoken about. The Hammer and Stefano, I think, are both sells. Both of them are at that perfect point. This rarely happens in SuperCoach, but at that perfect point where their average and their BE are almost exactly the same. So it's the perfect time to sell on both. Yeah,
well, I sold Hammer to Walsh last week. So his breaking was 30 at the time, and I think he only went up like 10k. So that worked out pretty well for me. I feel like he had his really good run to start with, but he scored a try every week. So he's going to have periods where he's not going to score a try. He's going to throw out a 25 to 30 point game and hurt the people that haven't sold him yet, in my eyes.
Heaps of questions coming through on YouTube. Stuart Graham is asking, how long do we persist with Holmes? Bad buy schedule and origin. He was the guy who we all thought was going to come out of the blocks hard. The Cowboys had this amazing run. Hasn't really worked out like that, but he's been going okay as well. I don't think he's a sell. I just wish he was going a bit better.
I feel like everyone's just getting that little bit greedy with that. Everyone's seeing the Marjus averaging 80 plus and wanting to jump ship. But yeah, Val's doing fine. I think if he started at a cheaper price, people probably wouldn't care so much. But the fact that he did start in the 700s, I think it was, everyone's kind of wanting that 80 plus score to have happened by now. But he's scoring 60 every week and he's doing nothing.
Yeah, he's going pretty solid.
He's averaging 60. Drinky's back. He's the guy, if you hold him, he'll finish as a top 4 centre wing for total points. Annoyingly, so will Zach Lomax. But, while everyone else has highs and lows, these guys who are kicking goals in the centres, they end up averaging 60-odd points. And if they play, the 23 games or 24 games, then that's where they finish.
And look, he's not a season-long hold either because he's going to play Origin. So he's a guy that's going to disappear at the Origin period. So...
But he only needs to score 1 try or 2 tries between now and then to have held his value by the time you do move him on.
And unfortunately, they're playing the Dolphins this week, and I feel like you might get one against
the Cowboys. Have to kick into gear at some point. This would be a great game to do it.
I think Drinkwater being back is going to really reinvigorate the whole attacking structure and get a few more points going, unfortunately.
Here's a question for you, Rob, on Facebook. Lobs and Lisa are asking Sean Russell for a sneaky pod versus the Tigers this week.
I've had to turn to my one stat, which is that Sean Russell has played 3 games in the NRL. He's scored 5 tries, but he's so efficient, he's only run for 240 metres. Now that is bloody awesome.
And so for that reason, you've actually brought him into your team.
Oh, like I do stupid stuff before I come onto the podcast every time, and Sean Russell is my stupid stuff. But I kind of like it, but I'm not going to do it. But look, he's very efficient.
Yep, he is indeed. We're going to run through each of the games now and pick a player from each side who has piqued our interest, maybe not as a buyer, just someone to talk about. At the Storm, obviously the big news there is that Jerome Hughes is back from suspension. Pezzett goes out of the 17 altogether, so we won't get any more price rises from him. The guy I want to mention is William Warbrick, who is one of these guys who I played in my 17 for the first 3 rounds, haven't touched him for the next 2, and he's gone out and pumped out big scores.
Yeah, he's, again, another one of those holds. He's still going to earn a fair bit of cash, probably another 2 weeks, possibly pending any tries over the next couple of weeks, and then he could probably be moved on.
Josh King for me. If you took out the game where they played at the Gold Coast and it was 107 degrees and Corey Parker's legs were sweating rivers, that was one of the great pre-game little facts from Corey. He let on how much his legs were sweating, and then he sort of pointed to Blocker, and Blocker, you could see him just slowly roasting in his jacket. But I digress. Josh King has a base of about 65. I think he scored 2 tries. He's at 550k. Yeah, everyone's looking at getting rid of Carrigan, and I'm moving on so-and-so. Who do I get? I'm like, Josh King's pretty good, Moving
on to the Roosters, Joey Manu gets the fullback spot of James Tedesco. But you were saying, or the Roosters people in the office were saying that him and Suwali might mix it up a little bit during the game.
Correct. Yeah, that's the word, that they might sort of job share at fullback. I hate that. Because, Suwali's just still learning how to defend at centre, so I don't want him coming in and coming out. Joey Mano, he can do it. You could ask, Joey Mano could play 5'8" centre and fullback all in the one game. He'd be fine doing like Nico Hynes. Remember when Nico Hynes played fullback and halfback in one game for the Sharks?
Yeah, because he defended at fullback and played at halfback with the ball.
Yeah, because Kennedy got sent off for a high tackle, right? Yeah. And it was the best Supercoach game in history. He just did both ways. Joey Mano can do that. Suwali can't yet. He's like 19 or 20.
I think part of the issue for that is that the Roosters have had issue with their synergy as well. And then to have players swapping positions during games, it's not going to help with that process. Yeah. Just getting people to actually knuckle down into their position and actually work on their processes.
Which they did pretty well last week. So I think they'll leave Suwali. I think they'll let Joey
Tedesco
play.
There.
Yeah, they'll let Joey play a roaming role. Yeah.
Any other talking points from this team, Kane?
Joey was the one that I was going to be looking at, but
he's 800k. So
can't get it.
I was thinking, like a couple of weeks sort of show, but it's not going to happen.
It could be 1 week that he plays fullback as well.
Suwali, though, is around, 570k?
580, I think.
So, I could kind of be tempted. If he was named fullback this week, I'd kind of be tempted, but I think you just got to go Marzu at a similar price.
The other one I'll just throw in quickly is Daniel Tupu is just goddamn professional, and he just scores tries. That's what he does. His price isn't that high at the moment, and I think he's a pretty good get if you're looking for a bit of a pod back.
Bulldogs v the Rabbitohs at the Doggies. They've lost 5 players and they've got a few in doubt just in 1 week. 11 first-grade forwards are unavailable or in doubt this week. So they've got a whole bunch of kids in there. Jacob Carraz, I hate talking about him because I don't own him, but he's just a freak. 75 in base. That's what you're looking as the baseline, and then any attacking stats on top of that.
Yeah. As an owner, I'm stoked to have him just sitting there, and I have no plans to move him on for the foreseeable future. He just beasting out points without any attacking stats at all, which is just fantastic. Any attack just pushes him over the 100 mark.
As an owner, I'm loving him, but I will sell. Just because I need to make money to get to Nico, and dropping him down to a 500k centre wing is probably how I'll do it.
What's the break even for him now?
It's about what he averages. It's in 70s, high 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Rabbit. Anyone else from the Dogs that you guys want to point out?
We already spoke about Preston there with his injury and still being names, but yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on late mail to make sure that he's still there. Max King with his eye was a popular pick last week for a few people. Again, named, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out, but yeah, with their outs, you'd think that they'd have to play.
That's it. I was going to jump into the Rabbitohs. Latrell Mitchell, all the attention's on Miller, on Walsh. Latrell Mitchell's just quietly having bad games and averaging 60. In the Q&A, I was getting quite a lot of people saying, do I drop Mitchell and do this? I'm like, you know what? Hold Mitchell now. He's at that point where 140 is just around the corner. His runs have come up the last couple of weeks, which is all you want from Latrell, because the more he actually runs the ball, he scores so many points. He's so efficient.
It was actually my plan to buy Latrell last week, but the week before it just didn't look right. I feel like that knee injury had kind of hampered him that little bit. So I swung over to Reece Walsh, obviously,
which has done
well.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm still fine with that decision. But Latrell's still definitely on my radar as a purchase.
Yeah.
Latrell has lost 191k this year, so you're looking at a pretty serious.
He's still a big boy. He must have come into the season weighing a bit.
He's here we go. He's just under 700k. So he started expensive, obviously, but it's a pretty good price for him. And I think Cody Walker could be a guy in the next couple of weeks to get in at a decent price with an okay run coming up. Cowboys v the Dolphins. Drinkwater's back. Chester's to the bench. Lukey and McLean are both out. They're both big outs, but they do have Ruben Cotter back into that team. Anyone standing out for you here, Rob?
Yeah, the coach. Mitchell done at 8 and Griffin Neame at 12. Well, thanks very much. I mean, look, it might line up that way, which, once again, I'll look like an idiot. Yeah. But my money's on the second row. I'm playing second row, and the prop playing prop.
Mitch Dunn is the new coming of Isaiah Yeo, though.
I did read that from somewhere. Yeah, because he's tall.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about. Anyone at the Cowboys?
Not much else there for me, I don't think.
Right, your Dolphins. The guy, obviously everyone's selling Hammer, and I think that's a good move.
Yep.
The guy who's gone out of his skin this year is Jermaine Asako, who's made almost 200k, and with more to come this week.
And the biggest thing that was the problem with Asako was him having his kind of brain snappy sort of moments and throwing a pass to a fullback that misses him by 5 metres and rolls into the in goal, and those sort of errors that are just really bad brain snaps. He had a few errors in the first game, but I think he's barely had an error in the last 3 weeks. He's really tidied up his game, and he's running for a whole heap of metres, more than the forward pack every week. He's playing really well. I'm super stoked for him to be there.
It boils down to this, in that Wayne is very good at coaching people who aren't particularly bright, like Queenslanders, right? So what he's very good at doing for Queenslanders is taking the mystery out of the game and keeping it simple, stupid. So he's done that here, and I'm not saying Asako's stupid, I'm saying that he's prone to fits of overthinking it. And Wayne's very good at underthinking it, like a Queenslander. Oh, did I dig myself deeper? Should probably stop. Mum's a Queenslander, I'm dead.
Well, isn't that Bellamy's big thing, that he keeps it simple for all of his players, and that's why they all do their simple jobs well? So
no,
it's not just a Queensland thing.
Yeah, he cheats.
Oh, wow.
Again, not touching that one either.
Are you trying? Are you trying to get sacked for the last 2 weeks?
I'm not on the podcast on Thursday. I might as well just get them all out, Tommy.
And it's holidays for you coming up soon, so you're pretty excited.
Sort of holidays. Sham of holidays. I'm working from a holiday destination. But yes.
That's better than being in the office.
It's true.
Panthers v the Sea Eagles. Lindsay Smith was going to be my guy that I chatted about, but we have spoken about him. Taruva, I just love. I know I bring him up every week, but the base stats are great. And even when he doesn't score base stats, like on the weekend, he got 2 tries, not with line breaks, unfortunately, but still got 60-odd points.
Yep, happy hold. I'm stoked to have him there. He's my go-to fourth centre wing in my side every week. If there's one of the other 3 cheapies that have a better match-up, then I might swing one of them in. But yeah, he's my usual number 4, and I don't think I'll change that for a couple of weeks.
The only other Panther I'm thinking of bringing into my team is Jamin Salmon, just because he's a bloody good bloke. That's it.
Sea Eagles, Tom Trbojevic. I want to talk about him because he's coming up against Nathan Cleary. These guys would generally be your VC option, but they're playing the same game, so you can't do it. And it's a tough matchup for both teams, really. What are you doing with the captaincy this week?
I'm looking at Cleary as captain. I think that Manly just conceded, 30 points to Newcastle?
32.
32, yeah. So look, I don't think that their defence is super. We still don't even know if Saab's going to be confirmed to play yet. He's coming back from an ACL. Whether he's 100% ready on the weekend or not, we'll find out. And if he's not playing, then we've got Vega potentially taking his spot, who, again, could get found out a little bit. In terms of Tom, I love Tom. I'm a big Tommy fan, but yeah, I'm not putting any captain or vice captain on him against Panthers, who are averaging 10 points a game against them at the moment. So
nailed it. VC Carraz for me. Captain Cleary against a patchwork Manly backline. Yep.
Broncos v the Raiders. At the Bronx, no changes. That's every week. There's no changes for them. Pat Carrigan is a popular sell, and I can kind of get around it. The break even is 88, and Payne Haas is just such a big force in that team that he's still in minutes, all the work, all the offloads. He's doing everything. So I can get around selling Pat Carrigan.
Yeah, he scored a try in the first week, I think, and everyone was like, Carrigan, yeah, this is it. And he's a worker. He's a worker with a little bit of zing, and that hasn't been the zing of late.
Yeah, I don't dislike Carrigan as a SuperCoach pick, but if, again, you've got to sell someone, he's not a bad option to sell.
Especially at 600k.
Yeah.
At the Raiders, they've got Jared Croker back into that team, which is good to see. And interestingly, Brad Schneider is playing in the halves with the injury crisis that they've got in that position. Joe Tapine is the guy I want to talk about. I want to get him in for that first buy, but as you say, he's got that buy beforehand in 9,
I think
isn't it?
8 or 9.
So you've got to get him in. I think he's pretty much a must-have before that round 13 and
Definitely.
after round 9.
Yeah, I'd be waiting. Yep.
Titans with anyone else at the Raiders piquing your interest, guys?
I think I've said all I'm contractually allowed to say.
At the Titans, I think it's a decent matchup for them. They're coming off the bye, and it's up against the Dragons at home in a day game. So David Fafita, sneaky captaincy choice. If you get behind in the round.
I've seen a few people going that option, and I don't dislike it. I think he hasn't really had a whole lot of his usual just throwing people like ragdolls and scoring a try moments, which we know are going to come at some point, and a match up against the Dragons seems like it might be a decent option for this week. He's definitely due.
You'll probably hate yourself at halftime when he's on 16 points, though.
Not when he's on 120 at full time.
That's the thing, though. But even that 40 minutes of self-hate, is it worth it? I just stick it on Cleary and be done with it.
Dragons. Anyone standing out for you there, Rob? I actually think that Zach Lomax could be a decent buy at some stage. He's come down to a pretty handy level.
Yeah, I think Lomax is the guy that I could target, if I'm downgrading Carraz, and that he could be the one. Yeah,
I'd have to have a look at his buy schedule. Does he play round 13?
They did the first buy, and then I think they're okay. I think. Yeah, I think there's an early and a late for them. It's a bit of an odd buy schedule.
Yeah, because that would play into my decision there.
Lomax will be playing Origin though, so it's irrelevant.
Give me a break.
Knights v the Warriors. Lockie Miller is a guy who I just want to get in every week, but I can't. Like, it just never works out for me.
Yeah.
So it's Marsu this week, and Marsu is going to make cash, guaranteed. Even though it's risky, I think I'm going to get on.
And the difference is Marzu knows where the try line, unlike Lockie Miller.
Yeah, that was sensational last week.
That one's going to be played for years to come, that one. It's going nowhere.
Yeah.
At the Warriors, they've got Tamari Martin back, which is good news after that head injury that he had last week. Tohu's back too, but it's a long wait until Sunday, 6:15 p.m. And then we've got the Monday game, of course, with the Easter weekend. So hopefully we get some news pretty early about Tohu.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people who had him would have sold him last week anyway. So I don't think there's going to be a whole heap of people that are going to be sitting on that news. I know.
I will be.
I know Addo sold him to Payne Haas, which worked out fairly well.
Yeah, nice.
I'd throw in Sean Johnson here in a real purple patch, and I flirted with this move. But if you're looking to get to Hynes and you want to burn yet another trade, you could go Sean Johnson this week, get another 80k cash sort of boom. I think because he's got like 190 or something like that, 2 consecutive games. He's got pretty low BE and a pretty good game here as far as scoring points.
Yep.
And then go to Hynes. But I just don't want to burn that extra trade.
It's a lot of trades.
It's the trade burning. The other one that's kind of slipped through for me that I looked at was Wade Egan. I didn't get him because he scored 2 tries in the first 2 weeks, and I'm like, nah, he's not going to keep up that every week. Every
He's
week
doing
he
a
scores a try.
Reece Robson of last year.
Yeah.
And
it ends eventually.
I think for all of his tries, he hasn't run for more than 5 metres on either of them.
Definitely
been barge overs or he's picked up loose balls. Tigers v the Eels. At the Tigers, the big news is that Wakeham has been axed, even though he was their saviour a couple of weeks ago. And
that tells you how far the Tigers have slipped. The big news is Brandon Wakeham is out.
Dewey goes back to the halves. I mean, a lot of people are selling Dewey. Do you see any merit in holding Dewey as a pod? I know that Tim Williams, who's on this podcast regularly, thinks that he's looking okay, doesn't mind about the turf toe injury that he's carrying, and he's holding him as a pod. What are your thoughts?
I'm happy to hold. My biggest issue is that he's got a bye next week.
Yep.
So if he didn't have a bye next week, then I wouldn't even be looking at him as a sell option. He'd just be sitting there. But having Isaiah Katoa there as my backup 5/8, I'm not super confident to play him on a weekly basis. That could change after this week because I'm not selling Dewey this week, I don't think. But yeah, I don't think that his points are going to be too bad. I think his base is pretty good when he's playing 5/8, and all he needs is one attacking stat and he's going to throw up a 70 plus.
Yeah, Dewey to Hynes could be a popular trade next week.
Next week, yeah, for sure.
And then finally the Eels, we mentioned it at the start, but our man Jermaine Hopgood benched, unfortunately, this week. Cardi's a hold now for sure. Anything else standing out except for Sean Russell, who you've already mentioned?
Look, Dylan Brown, I expect this will be the big game. I jumped on him a couple of weeks ago, and he's got a bit of junk in him, but I think this is a game where he scores large. The other one thrown is Brendan Hands, very popular, Cheapie. I think they have to ask every week for a dispensation to pick him because he's still not in their top 30, but they get it. He didn't do a lot with the 30 minutes last week. He did a bit with the 30 minutes the week before. I wouldn't be hopping into him. Because
No.
I don't want to have him as my backup hooker when Harry Grant goes on a break.
Yeah, which is only a few weeks away as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, Taylor's written in, we'll just do a couple of questions till the end of the show. And he said, Maddo is only owned by 653 coaches. Does that sound right?
Doesn't sound right, surely.
Maybe 650 brought him in this week. His price is about 660, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
Look, either way, I think Maddo is a pretty serious
He's got
purchase now. He's starting
74
a
to
lot.
68. Yeah, he's a good option.
We also didn't mention Sean Lane's back. So he's a nice watch for a couple of weeks to see how he links up again and whether his fitness is
He'll be
up
good
to
for
scratch.
Dylan Brown.
And
Those two
he'll
just
definitely help
sync.
Dylan Brown because he gives Brown a target.
Yeah.
Josh King is saying, Kando is too smart for this show. Calm down
that's-
on the big words like
That's
Sid.
I'm assuming that's Kingy from BJ on game day.
The thing is, calling you too smart for this show is the classic damning you with faint praise.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely some. Yeah, we'll leave that alone. There's-
it must be. You must know this guy. 'cause
I do,
he's-
yeah.
Yeah, he's hammering you a fair bit. David Fafita, captain choice against the Dragons. Look, I'm not going to do it, but if I get really behind, I might be tempted.
Agree. I'm not going to do it, but I don't hate it.
Classic self-hatred of a Dragons fan. I love it.
Well, we'll end on that. Perfect note. That's the Teams Podcast, round 6. Big thanks to Rob. Big thanks to Kane. We'll catch you for the Game Day podcast at 11 a.m. Thursday. See you then.
Cheers.